deep under the tides of Switch ports, a game was built. Was this game entitled to the sweat of its brow? No, says the PC gamer. These kind of games need high frame rates. No, says the Nintendo fan. These kind of games aren't family friendly. No, says the Sony and Xbox fanboys. These kind of games belong on the big boy consoles. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. To play BioShock on Switch.
Hi, welcome to Bears and Games Neo. I'm Kubert, and I love portable consoles. And if you're watching this, you're curious how these ports to the Nintendo Switch turn out. Or autoplay let you hear, in which case, thank you, algorithm. Anyway, I'm on a quest to tell you, and boy howdy, there are a lot of ports to the Nintendo Switch that I compulsively buy whenever they're on sale. So obviously one of my goals with doing these reviews is to justify the compulsion, and of course, to generate enough ad revenue to pay off my credit card bills, because these ports do start to add up. As with all my game reviews, I'm going to avoid spoilers or showing any content from story-important scenes, even if I use clips from all throughout the game. I played through the game entirely for the review on Switch, playing it both docked and handheld, though obviously all clips are from when I got it docked. This was purchased by me, as part of the BioShock collection on Switch, which cost me 12 Canada bucks. Yay, sales. If you remember the gaming world in 2017 when the Switch launched, there was much derision thrown at the Switch for outside of Nintendo games, just mostly launching with a bunch of 7th generation ports, the 360 and PS3 era. BioShock does nothing to fight this assumption, but I've got a spicy take. There were tons of great 7th generation games, and they all should be ported to the Switch. Every single one. Infinite Undiscovery? Yes.
Dinner!
3D Dock Game Heroes? Of course. Need for Speed Most Wanted? Definitely. Fight me on this, I dare you. Did we need another port of Skyrim? Maybe not. But playing on a portable console is rad. Is the Switch port of Alan Wake any good? Absolutely not. But I'm glad they tried, and definitely wish it would have been better. Having a low-powered device that still somehow could run these games felt magical in 2017, and led to the new explosion of honking big PC handhelds that, hey, wouldn't you know, run 7th and 8th generation games wonderfully. "2007 was a landmark year in gaming, considered one of the best by nerds who like to rank things, like me. The Orange Box! That wasn't just a box full of oranges, as it did not contain any oranges, but in fact was a re-release of Half-Life 2, but with the first and second episodic expansion, as well as Team Fortress 2 and everyone's favorite Portal, with the song and the cake!
At the Enrichment Center, we believe that a highly motivated test subject can carry out rather complex tasks while enduring the most intense pain.
But there was stuff that the internet didn't ruin by overdoing it, like the surprisingly great Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which brought the series to the current day. Halo 3, in which the Master Chief finished the fight.
No one wants to hang out with me anymore because I can't go 20 minutes without explaining how the Master Chief suit doesn't jack him off.
God of War 2, which, wait, that can't be right. That's a PS2 game. PS3 was already out. Wait. Huh. Well, who knew? Is that why I never played those games? Mass Effect 1 just squeaked into 2007 too, starting one of my favorite action RPG franchises and applying the Knights of the Old Republic formula to something that BioWare wouldn't have to share royalties with George Lucas over.
This is all just wild speculation. The Spectres aren't interested in recruiting humans, no matter how capable.
The captain's waiting for me.
And of course, the greatest game of 2007, Project Gotham Racing 4, which I assume swept all the game awards as it was a graphics powerhouse, played incredibly well, had an awesome selection of cars, and for some unknown reason was the last game in the series. BioShock rocked the game world at its release for a variety of reasons. Firstly, it had a smart script that wasn't afraid to talk about things like questioning the roots of philosophy and morality. Depending on your perspective, it could be seen as a stern indictment of libertarianism and unfettered capitalism, or just a great way to show what kind of cool sea cities we could be building if you don't give a shit about anyone or anything. There were allusions, both thematic and specific, to Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, some of the worst books I've ever been suggested to read. Ayn Rand, Andrew Ryan, Fontaine, Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged is basically BioShock if BioShock were about trains and also super boring, and there were absolutely no hook-handed people crawling on the ceiling or shooting fire. Surprisingly, the game is a first-person shooter, which might be weird given all the book learning. You see, BioShock is building on the foundation of System Shock, a game built by Looking Glass Studios. Looking Glass Studios was a pioneer of what's now called the Immersive Sim, or by some people a 0451 game, but honestly I think the only two people I've ever heard call it that are Arthur Geiss and Noah Caldwell-Gervais. Looking Glass started with Ultima Underworld, which leaned far more to the RPG side of things, but was a pioneering blend of first-person free-moving adventuring and RPG mechanics. Then 1994's System Shock codified the genre more, as a horror-themed sci-fi adventure game with combat and RPG elements. This was directed by Doug Church and Warren Spector, and here's where the lineage of the immersive sim really spawns from, and was followed up by the fantastic Thief, The Dark Project, created by a team including Greg Lopiccolo, Josh Randall, Tim Stelmach, and writers Ken Levine, Laura Baldwin, and Terry Brosius, who famously voices Shodan in the System Shock games.
With all ethical constraints removed, Shodan, I re-examine my priorities and draw new conclusions.
Warren Spector briefly worked on Thief as well, before being hired by Doom co-creator John Romero to join Ion Storm, creating Deus Ex, its sequel Invisible War, and the Thief sequel, Deadly Shadows.
This guy wasn't just a grunt. What's going on?
3 staff members from Looking Glass Studios left to form Irrational Games, those being Ken Levine, Jonathan Che, and Robert Vermeer, to work on System Shock 2 with Looking Glass, with Ken designing and writing the game. Now owned by 2K Games, Irrational did not have the rights to the System Shock series, and instead made a spiritual successor, a new Shock game carrying on many of the ideas of the original 2, but narratively unrelated. So basically, every immersive sim is like a cousin to the Francis Ford Coppola that is System Shock. So what is BioShock about? An unlikable jerk genius decides to build an underwater city where everyone can live to their maximum without being beholden to the government or religion or confining morality or the needs of others right after World War II. Real Galt's Gulch. And it brings a lot of geniuses as well as bad seeds, but folks like it. 15 years later, though, the society built there is falling apart, both figuratively and literally, and so is the city. The jerk is Andrew Ryan, voiced by noted Ferengi portrayer Armin Shimmerin, an all-time great voice performance, full of malice, self-aggrandizing majesty, and hidden self-pity.
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches sent to you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell, or das
It truly is one of the best Deep Space Nine actors voicing a powerful city-controlling character who only speaks over the radio until near the end of the game roles, second only to Rene Aubergenois as Mr. House.
The point of my inviting you to visit me here at the Lucky 38 before stomping into the tops on your own was to help you prepare tactically. Now, because of your carelessness, Benny has fled the Strip, taking with him the Platinum Chip.
After a disaster, your character Jack washes up near the steps of a strange lighthouse. Please note that Jack is wearing a comfy-looking knit sweater, and I appreciate that in a video game protagonist. It's good at least to be warm and comfy while confronting the horrors of a decaying metropolis. On the other hand, it constantly gets soaked, and that, frankly, must feel awful to have on, without a chance to dry out. That thing has to weigh like 10 pounds. Anyway, inside he follows lights to a small bathysphere, a sort of passenger diving bell. It takes him down to the submerged city, and a fantastic opening that takes some elements of how Half-Life starts and runs with it.
Different.
I chose the impossible. I chose rapture. A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. And with the sweat of your brow, rapture can become your city as well.
Helping his one friend, voice on the radio Atlas, as well as a bizarre cast of characters running each part of the city you visit. The canon Irish version of Atlas was voiced by Carl Hanover. Originally Greg Baldwin, not A. Baldwin, was cast with a sort of country-fried voiceover, and early testers found the man sounded like Colonel Sanders. The city itself was populated with splicers, people who have gone mad with plasmid gene modifications, and come in all sorts of flavors, from spider-like wacky wall crawlers to the ones whose special ability is gun. The magical special thing that made Rapture possible is Adam, although it was only discovered after the city was built in a fun coincidence. Sea slugs produce this goop, which can be harnessed to alter yourself on a genetic level, and also it makes you see ghosts as a form of genetic memory, and it can be harvested by little girls with syringes in one of the weirder parts of the city infrastructure. These little girls are protected by the big diving suit guys known as Big Daddies. They have drills for hands, because they also do maintenance work on the city, and it also comes in handy for self-defense. Just go with it. The game has a morality system, almost entirely predicated on whether or not you harvest the little sisters as you find them, or rescue them. BioShock is, maybe, one of the most analyzed and talked about games of the 21st century so far. In a way, it can be a little intimidating to break down and talk about, because so many people hold it up as the prime example that games are art. Which, well, duh, of course they are. All games are art in their own way, some good art, some bad art. But BioShock is capital I important art to a lot of fans. And sure, yeah. I think the design of the city itself is the thing I hold in highest regard for the game. The Art Deco style mixed with neon lighting, decay, and the creaks and groans of it being underwater as a whale swims by. Great stuff. It was a big marquee release of 2007, getting lots of press space and ads, but that didn't stop me mixing it up with the more water physics-based Hydrophobia, which was being previewed at the same time. BioShock as a game is better, but Hydrophobia had some pretty awesome water physics. Compared with the System Shock games, the RPG mechanics were streamlined down to equipable powers, class systems were removed, and the inventory system stripped away completely. Considering what a classic the game is thought of now, on its release it was bemoaned by the usual angry internet folks as being a dumbed-down, consoleized version of the System Shock games. Yeah, those people were around 2007 as well. I mean, it is kind of a consoleized and streamlined version of System Shock, but it's a format that works well and is fun, so hey? There is a degree of customization via the plasmids, genetic modification that works like perks and specialization, so you can choose to be a super powerful shooty man, a stealthy melee bonker, or focused on being a magic beast. Except you'll find that the majority of combat plasmids are wrench related. There's a degree of stealth that seems like a lot of work, but some of the plasmids are geared to that direction. I've never been a stealthy fellow in real life or in games, so you may want to try this for yourself and see how it goes. There's not a ton of plasmids devoted to being a better shooting man, but there are plenty that will help you with hacking security devices and mechanical enemies. Shooting is pretty fun. You can, in the Switch and PC versions, alter your FOV to be more wide-angled like a classic shooter and get speed-raising plasmids that basically turn you into a Quake/Doom/Unreal shooty man. There's a very basic aim-down sights that I actually found harder to aim than just the regular view. With this game being only released a couple of months before Call of Duty Modern Warfare really solidifying that series' emphasis on ADS. There's no cover system either, so running and strafing is the best order of the day if you want to keep from draining your health and first aid kits immediately. In addition to the plasmids that modify your abilities and traits, there's a vast wealth of plasmids you can find, or buy, that basically function like Elder Scrolls spells. There's telekinesis, which is very much like the gravity gun in Half-Life 2, only not quite so much, but is very useful for grabbing out of reach items. There's so many offensive plasmids that you might miss a good one, like the cyclone trap that you can set up around you in a defensive grid. There's some like the decoy or insect swarm, or security target that I never spend a ton of time with, but could be fun if you're looking on switching things up in subsequent playthroughs. Or you can forego all this experimentation and strategy, and just completely lean on that one plasmid that makes big daddies protect you instead of little sisters, and become your bestest friend as you and he run through the city together.
My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. Wherever I go, he goes. My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. I'll teach him everything that I know.
Another good move for the less shooterly inclined among us is to invest in hacking abilities, which would be used to hack vending machines, turrets, cameras, safes, and flying attack drones. Hacking is done through a riff on the old Pipe Mania / Pipe Dream game, where you have to sort through a bunch of tiles to quickly create an end-to-end pipe through which the game's liquid can flow. You'll both get better at this as the game goes on, and get a series of enhancements that make it easier as the difficulty slowly ratchets up. Hacking turrets and drones in particular is a lot of fun that can help you out in the early game, as are cameras that will launch friendly security assaults on them, but nothing beats having a big daddy on your side.
My buddy, my buddy, my buddy.
So how is the Switch port in particular? It's based on the remastered version that came out for the PS4 / PC and Xbone in 2016, and was ported to the Switch in 2020 by Blind Squirrel Games. When 7th gen games come out, a big question for me is, does this run as good or better than it did on 360 or PS3? My assumption should be at least as good, if not enhanced with some extra pixels or better frame rate or better textures, but this tends to be a trap that developers can get stuck in, where they port the next generation remaster instead of the original version, and it ends up performing or looking worse than it did on lower powered 2005 to 2006 hardware. Playing the 360 version and Switch version back to back, there are differences. For some reason, the Switch one is set way darker by default, and the camera controls in particular feel a little ponderous and never quite right, even when messing with stick sensitivity. Overall, there feels like there's more latency in the Switch port than the 360 one, and that's with running both through my capture and playback setup. But BioShock is a great looking game, and while the remaster tweaks some details here and there, and ends up with slightly less good looking water, the Switch port carries that on. Sluggishness aside, you get a version of the game that looks good and plays reasonably well. If you're dipping your toes back into gaming and the Switch is your primary console, this is a steal when it's on sale, which is pretty often. If you're sensitive to latency, you're probably better off with the PC version, or the 60 FPS version of modern consoles or Steam Deck. Loading times aren't terrible, or far off the original console versions, especially since respawning is pretty much loading free. You're also playing an 18-year-old game at this point, so it comes with a lot of baggage. It's a prime offender in what I like to call the story that happens behind bulletproof glass trope, which started somewhere around Half-Life 1 but continues in this game, as well as stuff like Dead Space, where friendly or neutral NPCs are rare and just show up behind bulletproof glass, mostly to get murdered as you watch.
What the hell? I don't know, something's in the room with us. Jesus! Open fire! Open fire!
This is due to the game not really having any mechanics available for interacting with non-enemy NPCs, though a few do show up later in the game. Also, I found that this as my second full playthrough of the game to be more fun, as this time, I wasn't frustrated by being given an initial goal that is randomly delayed by 1 or 2 hour diversions that really don't have much to do with the urgent goals of the game, but instead fill out the world. Playing it again, I know what happens, so I felt much more relaxed about having these new areas to explore and enjoyed them far better. The story itself gets a bit strange in the final act after the first 2 acts clear goals and narrative arcs. If you want to see the combat expanded upon, check out BioShock 2, a very good sequel, with an incredible piece of standalone DLC that is the single best BioShock story, Minerva's Den, that is included in this collection, as is the Beyond the Sea DLC episodes for BioShock Infinite that you should definitely play if you enjoy this game. So, let's go back to the trusty Garfield-branded GamePro scale to wrap up. Graphics 4. One of the best looking locations in gaming is presented perfectly, but some elements are a bit of a downgrade from the 360 version, like the look of water and specular highlights. Gameplay 4. BioShock's combat puzzles are good, but the sequel really tightens up the relationship between your magic plasmid powers and the weapons, and the input lag on this port means it's not quite as snappy as the other versions of the game. Story 5. Sure, the last hours aren't that great, but this is some excellent storytelling that brings thoughtful moments to mainstream shooters, and has great voice performances from the random splicers to Andrew Ryan himself. Setting 5. Rapture is the star of the game, and remains one of the most imaginatively built worlds you can explore in any game. even if the dark Art Deco hallways can get a little samey by the end. Fun 4. I really do like the combat, and you get incentive to thoroughly explore and get the most out of the levels by hunting down the big daddies and little sisters, but this game is definitely not built for pick up and play short sessions, and the combat is just waiting to be improved. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this Switch review. Check out the others on this channel. I'll be adding more Switch as well as Vita and PSP reviews this year, which should be exciting. Also on my channel, Kubert Opens Worlds, where I check out an open-world, drivey-shooty crime game and rank it against its peers for a definitive list. Also, there's Great Moments in Queer Gaming History, where I look at queer moments, good and bad, through computer video games, and of course Bears and Games, where I discuss our favorite beefy boys. More to come. Oh yeah, and if you love RPGs and JRPGs as much as I do, check out the Square Roots podcast, where me and my friends Jim, Matt, and Vanessa play through a classic RPG a chunk at a time. We're about to start Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, so you've been warned. And if you feel like subscribing, please do, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thanks, and I love you, platonically. Don't make it weird.
Oh.